What's up everybody, welcome back to Superpower Reviews. My name is Liam Smith. Today we're taking a close look at a very special statue. This is the DC Collectibles Celebration Statue featuring Bombshell, Batgirl, and Supergirl. Okay, so first thing, let's take a look at the box. Of course, this is a fairly large box, as you can see, which just tells me it's really well packaged. You're looking at a box that's about 22 inches wide and about 14.5 inches tall. So it's a big package. They always package their statues really well within styrofoam, so that's a great thing. So looking at the front of the box, I have a close-up image of the statue, and flipping around to the side of the box, I have a very cool artist rendering of the statue, which of course was designed by Aunt Lucia and sculpted by Tim Miller. And because of the dynamic pose they got going on here with Supergirl flying, it does measure pretty tall. It's 15.22 inches tall. And flipping around to the back of the box, I have a full image of the statue and a few images of other statues in the Bombshell line. You can pause that, take a look at that, and also read some of the description on the back if you'd like to. Now this is a limited edition statue. There are only 5,000 made. This one is 931 out of 5,000. Okay, let's go ahead and get the Bombshell Batgirl and Supergirl out of the box and take a closer look. Okay, so there's definitely a whole lot to look at on this statue. There's a lot going on here. Of course, you got basically two statues in one with Batgirl and of course Supergirl, which her pose is amazing. I always talk about the dynamic poses. This is exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of action going on here, a lot of storytelling, all in one statue. Alright, so we'll go ahead and look at each individual character separately. Then we'll take a look at the whole statue, the base, everything as a whole. Okay, first thing, let's take a look at Batgirl. Now, one thing I love about the Bombshell line in general is they really did capture the essence of that era. Okay, so the first thing we'll look at is Batgirl's head sculpt. Now, you see they do have the bomber-style cowl going on here with the two different shades of purple. Love the detail they put in that. And speaking of detail, the one thing that's really impressive to me is these bomber goggles they got going on here. They have a nice faux leather look to them, but the main thing that's very unique is they have the pinkish red lenses where you can actually see the sculpted and painted eyes underneath it if you look closely. And they did a great job on the face sculpt overall. I always love what DC Collectibles does with the paint on the skin. It's not too glossy, it's not too matte, it has a fairly realistic look to it. I love the way they put a lot of detail into her face. Like I said, the goggles, the mole on her face, the paint job, the paint apps overall, a little bit of redness in the cheeks. Of course, they have the painted red lips. That was done really well. And moving a little further down here, I love the dynamic pose they got going on here with her batarang and the rope that she has in her hand here, the way it's stretching across, looped on both sides. That is a mixed media. It looks like a plastic material. It's very fragile, so you want to be careful, of course, when you're unboxing this and putting it together for the fragile aspects on different parts of the statue. Now, moving a little further down, I love what they did with her utility belt here. You can see the Bat logo on the front. Of course, they did the yellow and purple pouches as you would expect for Batgirl. But one thing they did was they gave it kind of a retro look with the straps that go around the bottom of the belt, around the legs, kind of giving it that flight harness look to it. And moving a little further down to her boots, has a very unique color combination on this. Has kind of a gold tannish color, a little bit aged looking. Lots of great detail on that, from the laces to the silver rivets going down the laces. They did a really great job on that. And flipping around to the other side, we're starting to see more details, such as the rope flying out like it's in motion, and of course you have her parachute on the back as well. Let me turn that around so you can get a closer look at that. Very cool detail on that, has a leather look to it, silver buckle, very nice detailed paint job. Again, like you'll see on a lot of statues, a lot of these details are on the back where you may not see them unless they're rotating, but they still pay attention to all those details. Now, spinning a little further around here, you have her cape flying out of the parachute, so technically it's not really a parachute, it has her cape inside. Okay, now speaking of Supergirl, let's go ahead and take a look at her. Now, I gotta say, this is one of my favorite parts of the statue, just the way that they have her flying into the air, the I-beams coming out, which I'm gonna touch on something about that in a moment. Everything about it is just amazing. Let's look at the head sculpt, for example. I mentioned the dynamic posing, the wind blowing, the way her scarf is just flying up in the air like that along with her hair. Again, another very fragile piece that you have to be careful with. You can see it's slightly flexible. The statue is polystone, but this is actually the mixed media. This is PVC. They did that so they wouldn't break so easily. Now with Supergirl's head sculpt, it's a little bit different because of course she has these I-beams coming out which cover up a large portion of her face. so you can't really see too much of her face because of that. The only problem I have with that is I understand that they are supposed to be the Supergirl eye beams, but it really does just look like bloody spikes coming out. It's something about the color. A lot of variations of Supergirl's eye beams will be blue. I mean, we're talking about something like the CW Supergirl, her eye beams are blue. I know that's not the case in the comics, but I'm thinking just to make it not look like her eyes are exploding, maybe they should have went with a blue. Okay, now moving a little further down to her suit. This part is absolutely beautiful. I'm going to show some of the details on this, but there is a filigree that goes throughout the side of the corset, the gloves, that is so detailed and so subtly shaded, you just have to see it up close, and I'll show you that in just a moment. And moving a little further down to the bust area, it is a blue with a gold trim, very highly detailed. I love the way they did it. So much detail there. I told you about the filigree. There's also the gold trimming around the breastplate, along the front of the corset, the buttons. Everything's so finely detailed, but it's not just that. If you look closely, it's a double shaded blue in there. You've got the light blue, but then there's shadowed areas in the corners along the trim. So much detail in that paint job. I absolutely love it. Now moving a little further down on the suit, you have what I would call a belt. It's the red Supergirl belt with the logo on it in gold. Okay, and moving around to the back of Supergirl, you have a little bit more of the dynamic flowing again, with the scarf flying up, the skirt flying up in the wind. Of course, she has her classic red trunks underneath the skirt, matching with the boots that are a little further down. I'm not sure what the white straps are around the legs, but again, this is a very original, unique version of Supergirl. Now, as she spins around here, you can definitely see what I mean about the dynamics of the pose. Just having a little bit of movement there, you can see where that action in the pose comes from. The skirt flying up, the scarf flying up, the hair, everything about it is moving just as it would with Batgirl's cape, as if the wind was going in this direction. Okay, and moving a little further down to Supergirl's boots. I love what they did here. You can see it's supposed to be a leather / vinyl style material. I love the design here. It's very retro. They have that split down the middle with the gold highlight on the front. Very unique, very different version of Supergirl. Very much in that bombshell theme, as we were talking about. Overall, I just love how it turned out. And speaking of her boots, you can see that's actually how she is attached to the base. I love this. Very unique. I'll show it in a minute. This cloud base here. It's basically like a smoke cloud, as if she's taking off, and it's billowing out from where she takes off. Now, because I didn't do a full assembly on this, I'm just going to show you how they both attach to the base. Now, Supergirl actually attaches at the bottom of her boot. She just simply is a pegged slot, just like that. Has the metal peg at the bottom and the shaped slot to make sure it fits into the boot the proper direction. You just simply slide that into the boot. It can be a little bit difficult to line it up, and it just slides right in and sits like that. Okay, now as far as how Batgirl attaches to the base, it is very similar to Supergirl. The only difference is she attaches directly to the base. There's one metal peg on the front leg, no peg on the back, so basically it just comes out just like that. A fairly long metal peg, that's nice because it gives it a lot of stability. The square peg at the bottom of the foot matches the square peg here. That way you make sure you have it lined up properly. It just simply slides in there just like that. You want to make sure the back foot is in the right position and that it sits completely flat. Okay, so now let's take a look at this amazing base. You want to talk about a lot of detail. This base has it. It looks like so many separate pieces. It's not just a big hunk of carved out plastic. This is polystone. Each piece looks like it's sculpted separately. You have some wood pieces here, some stone at the bottom, little speckles of what looks like blood on the rocks as I move around here. This is a very cool shout out to the Bombshell era. This is an actual fighter plane panel, it looks like. Looks like the riveted metal, green and yellow, basically like a fighter plane from that era. Moving a little further around, you have more debris sticking out of the rocks, lots of detail. The shading on it, the paint apps is just so realistic. I'm blown away by it. Now, I mentioned earlier, Supergirl's base, very uniquely done. Instead of just having a metal post or having her foot attached to the rocks, they have her floating up in the air, coming off of this billow of smoke or cloud of dust, whatever you want to call that. Very well sculpted. It's got kind of a translucent see-through look to it, so if you did backlight it, that would light up. It's very cool. Spinning around a little further, here you have a metal I-beam, more rocks, different shapes. Very cool, very dynamic, as I always say, and very much detail. This is one of those statues I always talk about where you want to have it on a rotating platform like this for display, absolutely would be perfect for this one. Okay, now because this statue has so much to look at, I'm going to go ahead and do an extended version of the scanning around, the 360, give you lots of close-ups, lots of detail on the Batgirl and Supergirl Celebration Statue from DC Collectibles. And like I said, this is a very unique statue, limited edition. It's going to be very hard to come by in the very near future, so if you want to pick up this statue for yourself, I do have a link in the description below. Alright, that's going to wrap it up for this review of the DC Collectibles Bombshell Celebration Statue featuring Batgirl and Supergirl. Go ahead and leave a comment below, let me know what you thought of the statue, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button, that way you won't miss any upcoming content. Thanks so much for watching, we'll see you on the next video.